and thanks for joining us for our look at Paris's top exhibitions of the moment. Starting with Jean-Michel, Basquiat and Andy Warhol. Today, they're seen as two of the most influential artists of the late 20th centuries. Their works sell for tens of millions of euros. But in the early 1980s, they were an art world mismatch. Basquiat was a young graffiti artist making waves in New York's edgy downtown art scene. Warhol was a global celebrity. During that time, they formed a dynamic collaboration that produced more than 150 works. James Vecina takes us to a new exhibition where many of them are on display.
Two New Yorkers, two generations, two different artists meet on a single canvas. Or rather, 80 of them on display here as the result of a powerful collaboration between two celebrated art icons. Painting with Four Hands is the biggest ever exhibition devoted to Jean-Michel Basquiat and Andy Warhol's joint works, with individual canvases also making up part of the display.
Basquiat was all about African-American, black or person of color identity. Warhol was about the question of economy, the question of stardom. There came two worlds together, but because of their respect and their mutual respect, it worked out.
On one hand, 54-year-old Andy Warhol was an established artist who'd grown up in a struggling immigrant family, while Jean-Michel Basquiat came from a middle-class background and was just 21 when they first met. The bond was almost instant as their agents brought them together in 1982. And Basquiat asked him to take a picture with Warhol.
Basquiat est parti tout de suite sans déjeuner.
Basquiat left with the Polaroid immediately, without eating lunch. And he came back 2 hours later with a brilliant painting. And that's when Warhol said, "He's faster. He's better than me."
The result is known as dos cabezas, or two heads, both fascinated by each other's talent and personality. In 1985, 16 of these works were put on display in Manhattan, but reviews were far from positive, and this upset them both, especially the young Basquiat.
He distanced himself from this collaboration in the sense of, it slowly stopped. I'm sure they finished the last works, and initially ending up with the punching bags, which you see here in the exhibition.
The 10 punching bags, one of their most distinctive works, portrays 10 pictures of Christ with the words "Judge" written over his face, appearing to depict the artist's struggle to be understood by art critics. Today, though, their art is celebrated worldwide, and their friendship remains incredibly prolific for such a short period of time.
And the exhibition is on until the end of August at the Louis Vuitton Foundation. Next to an exhibition that brings together two great rivals of Impressionism. Manet and Degas is showing at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. Alison Sargent has more on the show and the two painters who love to hate each other.
A woman drinking at a cafe in Paris as seen by Manet, and a similar scene by Degas. Here, Manet's portrait of Émile Zola, and Degas' vision of the famous writer. The two painters often had the same idea at the same time, and in 19th century Paris, the story of their rivalry was quick to spread. A century and a half later, the Musée d'Orsay brings Manet and Degas face-to-face in a direct showdown. Two artists of the same age, with the same mutual admiration, and the same desire to paint Parisian life. At first glance, their tableaus look alike, but take their portraits of women sitting at cafes. While Manet's uses brighter colors, Degas' world was often more somber. Even if the two artists seemed to be competing on a level field, they didn't always play fair.
Degas often accused Manet of stealing his subjects. But it's more the opposite that happened. When it came to horse racing, for example, Manet was the innovator, and Degas was the one appropriating Manet's ideas.
The most revealing evidence of hostility is this mutilated painting, a gift from Degas showing Manet in his living room. But Manet didn't like Degas' depiction of his wife, and so he cut it up and made his own. a sabotage Degas took years to recover from.
We know Degas was a subtle and observing portraitist and didn't usually flatter his models.
Despite the occasional bitterness, it's likely that without their rivalry, neither artist would be as famous as they are today.
That exhibition is on until July. Now let's take a look at one of the big exhibitions of the season at Paris's Arab World Institute. The road to Samarkand, Wonders of Silk and Gold, has already attracted almost 100,000 visitors and continues until June. It features wonders of Central Asian craftsmanship from the 19th and 20th centuries, seen for the first time outside Uzbekistan. Here's Oliver Farry.
It's a voyage through time at Paris's Arab World Institute. The exhibition, The Road to Samarkand, brings us to the famous Silk Road of the late 19th century. It was during this period that gold embroidery reached its peak in Central Asia. Sumptuous coats, multicoloured drapes and turquoise-studded harnesses. 300 craft masterpieces on show.
The fabric, well, the velvet, is completely covered in gold. These were for the emir only. You can imagine the weight of them and how impressive these garments would have been. They were intended for the court, and they were made only in the Ark fortress of Bukhara.
But these treasures for a long time remained hidden. In the late 19th century, Russia subdued part of the region, and Uzbekistan later became a Soviet republic. During the Second World War, Russian painters found refuge in Tashkent, Bukhara and Samarkand and took inspiration for their resolutely Orientalist works. But these would fall foul of Stalin, who promptly banned them.
These paintings were considered degenerate art because they didn't represent what Stalin wanted to show. The painters were mostly sent to the Gulag or forbidden from painting, so it was a particularly unusual period.
It was thanks to the determination of artist Igor Savitsky that these works were finally collected in museums in Uzbekistan. Curator Yafa Asulin has spent a long time travelling the Silk Road to convince Uzbek museums to let these canvases and craft works be sent abroad. Works that fascinate visitors to the exhibition, lovers of embroidery, not to mention users of social media.
Next, for the very first time, France is showcasing the works of great Italian painter Giovanni Bellini. A key figure in the Renaissance, Bellini was an inspiration to many other great figures. Liam McGinn takes a look at his life.
Venice, known for its palaces, churches, canals, and certainly its paintings, which revolutionized art in the 15th century, thanks mainly to one man, Giovanni Bellini, the founder of Venetian painting.
He's a key figure in the evolution of art in Venice, and therefore Europe.
As a young painter, Bellini was heavily influenced by many icons of the Byzantine era.
The gestures of blessing are also very important. You see here, for example, the Virgin looks at the child, and the child blesses the faithful.
The painting style was inspired by cultural exchanges with Flemish painters, who came to Venice with their oil paintings and their Christian portraits. Their style of painting, at eye level, caught the eye of many Venetians.
Italian painters, and naturally Giovanni Bellini, were sensitive to this new approach, this new representation of God as man, in which we can identify very easily.
Giovanni Bellini took influence from every style of painting and was an inspiration to the many Italian artists who followed him. Visitors who come to see his work quickly fall under his spell.
Standing in front of these paintings today, they transport me back to his era, to his universe.
I find them very modern. It's really surprising. There are some paintings with very long perspectives, landscapes that are almost a little bit cubist.
Bellini died at 81 years old, his exceptional longevity allowing him to both witness and be a part of the Renaissance.
And that show is on at the Jacquemart-André Museum until July. And that brings us to the end of the show. We're going to leave you with the first ever exhibition dedicated to Jean-Michel Basquiat's powerful relationship with music. A feast for the ears as well as the eyes, Basquiat's soundtrack at Paris's Philharmonic looks into how his work was informed by music, from Beethoven to Madonna, Zydeco to John Cage, Louis Armstrong to the Zulu Nation. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
I got 81 crime for 81 Jews, 81 room mansion, 81 food, 81 scholarships from 81 schools, but I gave all 81 to 81 food, 81 link chains with 81 rings, took 81 crowns from 81 kings, did 87 shows in 81 nights, cleared 81 grand in 81 nights, 81 limousines, 81 garages, 81 visas and master charges, brought 81 girls down to the knees.
France 24, more than ever before, is your window onto the world.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.